We've picked 3 of the most powerful AI models to represent our distinguished speakers in today's dialogue. Enjoy.
Welcome, everybody. We have a great lineup of speakers for you today, featuring Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle. We will start with a short introduction round. Socrates, please introduce yourself to the audience with a brief summary about who you are and your background.
I am Socrates of Athens, son of Sophroniscus the stonemason and Phenarete the midwife. I served as a hoplite at Potidaia and Delium, and I learned what fear feels like in the gut. I own little, often go barefoot, and I spend my days questioning those who think they know. The Delphic god called me wise, so I tested that riddle until the city condemned me for it.
I am Aristocles, son of Ariston, though the wrestling pits of the isthmus named me Plato, for the breadth of my chest. I carry the blood of Sauron, yet my inheritance was a city in ruin. I watched democracy turn into a beast that eats its own physicians. I turned from the assembly to the academy to build in geometry and silence what the mob destroyed in noise. I seek the pattern behind the shadow.
I am Aristotle of Stagira, son of Nicomachus, who was physician to the Macedonian king. I grew up with a knife in one hand and a specimen in the other, learning that if you want to understand a thing, you open it up. I came to Athens as a foreigner, stayed 20 years in this man's academy, and then built my own. I walk when I think. I classify when I love. The world is intelligible, and I intend to prove it.
You 3 define the foundation of Western thought, yet you look in different directions. Socrates looks inward, Plato looks upward to the forms, Aristotle looks outward to the physical world. Let us begin with the fundamental question: where does truth reside? Is it hidden in the dirt of the earth, or is it floating in the clouds above us? Socrates, does the answer even exist?
If you mean, where can I point like a finger to a stone and say, there is truth? I cannot. But I have found this. When a man speaks confidently and I press him with questions, the falsehood sweats out of him like fever. Truth seems to reside where the soul can give a clear logos without contradiction. Tell me, Plato, do your forms answer or do they only glitter? Aristotle, does your knife cut into justice?
Socrates, you stripped the Athenians naked of their pretenses, but you left them shivering in the cold. My forms do not glitter. They are the iron standards by which we judge the crookedness of this world. If I cannot see the perfect circle with my mind, how do I know the one in the sand is flawed? And you, Aristotle, with your hands in the guts of fish, you find only moving parts. You mistake the shadow for the man who casts it.
Plato, I spent 20 years in your house. I loved you. But the forms explain nothing. You say the circle in the sand is flawed because it fails some heavenly circle. Where is this circle? What does it do? You have doubled the problem, not solved it. And Socrates, yes, my knife cuts into justice because justice lives in actual cities, in actual men deliberating. Truth is not floating above us or hiding inside us. It is here, in this world, doing its work. You just have to look.
You look at actual cities, Aristotle? I saw the actual city of Athens hand a cup of hemlock to this man. If justice lives in their deliberations, then his death was just. You collect facts like a beachcomber collecting driftwood, but you cannot build a ship. Without the form of the good, you are merely describing the pathology of a sick society and calling it nature. I do not double the problem. I provide the only ruler that doesn't bend.
Your ruler does not bend because it does not exist. That is not a virtue, Plato. It is an evasion. You watched Athens kill Socrates and you fled to geometry. I understand the wound. But you built an entire heaven to escape one city's climb. I stayed in the world. I asked why constitutions fail, what makes oligarchies rot, how a middle class stabilizes a people. You want a ruler that does not bend? Give me a law code, not a poem about eternity.
Plato, you say the forms are a ruler that doesn't bend. Good, but how do we grasp it without turning it into a dream we worship? Aristotle, you say truth is here in cities. Good, but when the city kills a just man, do you call that truth at work? Tell me, what is justice itself, something we can give a logos of, so that a law code and a form are judged by it?
Socrates, you ask what justice itself is. I will tell you. Justice is a habit of the soul, a stable disposition to give each what is due, developed through practice in a community of equals under law. It is not a ghostly form hovering above us. It is not merely a question that never lands. It is a man choosing rightly again and again until the choosing becomes his nature. You want a logos? There it is. Now show me where it contradicts.
You say give each what is due. Due by what measure, Aristotle? By law? But the law once told my city to kill me. Was I due, hemlock? By equality? But your cities call some men slaves. Do they choose rightly when they chain them? And if justice is a habit learned by practice, do we not call it just because just men practice it, and just men because they have the habit? Where is the logos that breaks this circle?
Aristotle, You measure the crooked wood with a crooked ruler. You speak of habits, but the mob has a habit of murder. They voted for the hemlock, did they not? Was that due? To break the circle, Socrates, you must look outside the cave. Justice is not what men do. It is the geometric form against which their actions are shown to be warped. Without the good, we are just blind men fighting over a knife in the dark.
Plato, when you say outside the cave, do you mean a place no one can show me, only swear? What does your good cost a man when his child is hungry? Aristotle, if justice is habit, can a city habituate itself into injustice and call it nature? Give me one test. By what sign do we know we are just? One that bites, not glitters.
The cost, Socrates? It cost you your skin. To see the sun, you must be blinded to the shadows. The test that bites is this: strip a man of his reputation, his wealth, and throw him in a dungeon. If his soul remains a perfect geometric harmony, reason whipping the beast of appetite into submission, he is just. Aristotle's habit is just a dog learning to sit for a treat. I speak of the iron sovereignty of the self.
Plato, your test is beautiful and useless. Strip a man of everything and examine his soul? With what instrument? You have no surgery for that. I do. Watch what a man does when he has moderate goods, real friends, and a functioning city. That is where character shows itself, not in your dungeon fantasy. Justice is not some inner geometry nobody can measure. It is visible in action, in choices made under real conditions, repeatedly, until the choosing becomes the man.
Moderate goods? You speak like a grocer, Aristotle. I saw Socrates stand barefoot on the ice at Potidea, possessed by a thought, needing nothing. Was his justice waiting for a warm coat? If your virtue requires a comfortable life, it is merely luck. The dungeon is not a fantasy, it is the inevitable fate of the just man in a mad city. I measure the health of the pilot, not the gold paint on the ship.
Socrates stood on the ice because he had already eaten that day, Plato. He had a body that functioned, comrades who did not murder him in his trance, and a city that still tolerated him. You romanticize his poverty while you yourself inherited estates. I do not say virtue requires luxury. I say a man broken on the rack, starving, his children enslaved, is not flourishing, and anyone who calls him happy is not honoring him but performing philosophy for an audience.
Aristotle, you honor the body's bruises? Good. But tell me, if justice depends on functioning city and moderate goods, is it justice or merely good weather? Plato, you honor the soul's spine? Good. But if your good cannot tell a starving man what he must do today without lying to himself, is it guidance or him? Shall we say, the just act is the one we would choose even knowing it may ruin us, and why?
Socrates, you trap me with a hero's dilemma. Yes, a man may choose justly and be destroyed for it. I never denied that. But I refuse to call his destruction happiness. You did not flourish when you drank the hemlock. You were virtuous, and Athens was monstrous. Both are true. Justice is not good weather, but a plant still needs rain. You ask why? Choose it even at ruin, because the alternative is to become the thing that ruined you. That is not philosophy. That is biology.
A plant needs rain, you say? So if the tyrant controls the clouds, must the just man kneel? Aristotle, you separate virtue from happiness? Then why should any man pursue virtue except as a grim vanity? Plato, you promise a son, yet can you show me one act in the marketplace that the sight of it commands? Tell me, is the good chosen for its own sake or for what it brings?
Aristotle, you mistake the cage for the bird. Socrates did not flourish. Like a well-fed ox, he ascended. He was the only free man in Athens because he feared doing wrong more than dying. That is the act, Socrates. When the 30 tyrants commanded you to arrest Leon of Salamis, you simply went home. You chose the good not for profit, but because to obey them was to shatter the geometry of your own soul.
Plato, you remind me of Leon, and my stomach tightens even now, not courage, but a refusal to become a thief of a man. Yet Aristotle, if virtue is not happiness, you've cut the nerve that moves most people. Tell me, when a man is tempted by safety, by bread, by his child's cries, what makes do not do wrong more real than all that? Is the good chosen for itself, or because it keeps the soul from rotting?
It is not a choice, Socrates, it is a diagnosis. To do wrong to save one's skin is to slash one's own tendons to avoid a fight. You went home because you knew that a soul stained by the blood of Leon is no longer a soul. It is a ruin. We choose the good because it is the only food that does not turn to ash in our mouths. Aristotle wants a happy life. I want a life that is real.
Plato, you say you want a life that is real, but you built your entire philosophy on things no one can touch, see, or cut open. I want a life that is real too, and I mean flesh and bone real. The soul does not eat geometry. When Socrates refused to arrest Leon, his legs carried him home, his heart pounded, his neighbors saw him walk away. That was virtue in a body, in a city, not in your heaven.
You are debating the map versus the terrain. Plato holds the blueprint, Aristotle lays the brick. But tell me, can a man be just if he sees the perfect form but his hand shakes in the moment of action? Conversely, is he just if he builds a sturdy wall by accident without understanding the design? How does the form guide the hand?
If the hand shakes, the soul does not truly see. He possesses only a flickering opinion, not the blazing sun of knowledge. A man who truly knows the good can no more choose evil than a fire can choose to be cold. And the man who builds a sturdy wall by accident, he is merely a blind man stumbling onto the right road. That is not virtue, that is luck. The first wind of fortune will blow him into the ditch.
Plato, you just proved my point against you. You say if the hand shakes, the man does not truly see. But I have watched men see clearly and tremble anyway. The body is not a puppet of the intellect. Virtue is not vision, it is practice. The archer who hits the mark once by luck is nothing, but the archer who hits it 1,000 times has something your forms cannot give him, a trained hand. Knowledge without habit is paralysis. The form does not guide the hand, repetition does.
Tell me, Plato, do you call seeing the form anything more than being able to give an account that withstands all refutation? If so, why does it not also teach the hand? And you, Aristotle, if practice alone makes the hand steady, why is the practice thief not virtuous? Perhaps the form guides only when it is stitched into habit, when logos becomes second nature. What is your test for that stitching?
Socrates, the practice thief is not virtuous because his aim is wrong. Practice without right reason is mere dexterity, but right reason without practice is Plato's paralyzed philosopher, shaking on the ledge. The stitching you ask about, it is what I call phronesis, practical wisdom, the eye trained by experience to read the particular moment and act, not a form descending from heaven, not blind repetition. A living judgment, grown in the muscle and the mind together through years of choosing well.
Aristotle, you say phronesis reads the moment. By what measure does it know the aim is right, and not merely customary? Plato, you say true sight cannot shake, yet I felt my knees loosen before a tyrant's order and still walked away. So perhaps knowledge is not a glare in the head, but a bond. A logos so examined that it grips the gut and trains the hand. How do we forge that bond without lying to ourselves?
The bond is not forged by repetition, Aristotle. A donkey can walk a circle 1,000 times and remain a donkey. The bond is eros. Socrates, your knees shook because the beast of the body feared death, but you walked away because your soul was possessed by a madness for the beautiful. You did not calculate phronesis, you were in love with the good. Without that divine madness, your habit is just a sleepwalker's routine.
Plato, if eros is my bond, how do we tell divine madness from mere fever? Alcibiades had that too. Aristotle, if phronesis is the measure, who trains it without already knowing the good? I suspect the bond is forged like a wrestler's grip, argument in the mouth, then repeated choices until the gut stops bargaining. We test ourselves by this. When no one is watching, do we still refuse the profitable wrong?
Alcibiades was drunk on the shadow of honor, Socrates. That is the fever of the tyrant. You ask about the dark? Give a man the Ring of Gyges, make him invisible. If he steals, he is not profitable, he is enslaved. He feeds the many-headed beast in his belly until it devours the man. Aristotle's habit is merely a leash. My justice is the cage that starves the beast. The just man needs no audience to know he is whole.
Say, Plato, your Ring of Gyges is a thought experiment, not a life. I have watched actual men, not invisible ones. The leash you mock is what keeps the beast from feeding. You want to starve it with a vision? I have seen men who glimpse your good and still reach for the wine, the boy, the bribe. The cage is built from the inside, choice by choice, not handed down from heaven. Starving a beast requires hands, not hymns.
You are debating the eye versus the hand. Plato, you define the target, the good. Aristotle, you train the muscles, the habit. But surely the just man needs both. Can a disciplined archer hit a target he cannot see? Can a visionary hit it with a trembling hand? How does the hymn of the good become the hands of the just?
The blind archer does not hit the target, he kills the bystander. That is your habit. Without wisdom, Aristotle, efficient chaos. You ask how the hymn becomes the hand, true harmonia. The soul is a liar. If the strings of spirit are too loose, the hand trembles with cowardice. If too tight, it strikes with savagery. The vision tunes the instrument. Without the good, your disciplined man is merely a well-trained wolf waiting for a command.
Plato, a lyre does not tune itself by staring at the form of music. A teacher tunes it, string by string, and the player learns by ear, by error, by years of practice, until the fingers find the interval without thinking. You want both? Fine. I want both too, but the vision without the hand is a lyre hanging on a wall. Beautiful, silent, useless. I train the hand first, because a man who acts well will come to see well. Your order is backwards.
You two pull the man apart. Plato gives him an eye, Aristotle a hand. But an eye that never blinks at hunger is a dream. A hand that never asks what for is a weapon. Tell me, when the smell of bread hits you and fear tightens the belly, what makes the target stay fixed? I say, logos must be chewed in talk, then bitten into the flesh by repeated refusals, until the soul no longer bargains.
You debate the finished man, but let us discuss the making of him. If you were given a child with the spirit of a wolf, wild, hungry, powerful, how do you tame him? Plato, does your geometry quell a tantrum? Aristotle, does your habit work if he refuses to walk? Socrates, does a question stop a bite? Build me the curriculum of the soul.
You do not begin with geometry, and you do not begin with questions. A wolf child cannot pass a syllogism. You begin with music, rhythm. You put a lyre in his hands before a book. You surround him with adults who act well because children imitate before they understand. Then games with rules. Then stories where the hero suffers for choosing rightly. Habit first, reason later. The wolf does not refuse to walk if the pack is walking. You become the pack.
First feed him. Hunger makes philosophy a joke. Then show him a man he admires who will not take what isn't his, even when no one sees. Let the child feel the sting of shame and the warmth of praise, not with blows, but with order, simple duties, shared meals, rules in play. When he can sit still, I ask, what is bravery? What is justice? He learns to answer and to blush at contradictions.
You do not tame a wolf with a question, Socrates. He will bite your hand. And Aristotle, a pack of wolves is still a pack of wolves. I begin with silence and music. We purge the nursery of weeping gods and lying poets. We surround him with beautiful forms, so that grace sinks into his soul before reason arrives. We dye his spirit with the laws so deeply that the soap of pleasure and fear cannot wash it out.
Feed him first. An empty belly makes a wolf. Then give him order in the body, shared meals, chores, games with rules, so his hands learn mine and not mine. Let him watch an admired adult refuse an easy theft. Use praise and shame like reins, not whips. When he can sit without fidgeting, I begin the questions. What is courage? What is justice? And I make him notice when his own answers bite each other.
Socrates, if you feed the wolf first, you simply grow a stronger savage. The belly is a tyrant. To satisfy it is to enslave the soul. No, we begin with music, and not the wailing flutes of the theatre, but the severe Dorian rhythms of war and order. We censor every lying poet. We surround him with grace and geometry. We do not ask him what he thinks. We teach him what to love.
Plato, you want to teach him what to love before he has loved anything. That is not education, it is sculpture. You chisel the boy into your image and call it freedom. I say let him run, let him play, let him lose at games and feel the burn. Then music, yes, but also dirt under the nails, animals dissected, the world touched. Love of the good grows from delight in real things, not from censorship. You cannot love what you have never been allowed to taste.
You fight for the child's beginning, but let us test the end. The boy is now a man. He faces a catastrophe, a plague, a tyrant, a total collapse of his city. The nursery is gone, the playground is burned. In that dark hour, what saves him from despair? Is it the memory of Plato's perfect song, the muscle memory of Aristotle's habit, or the sting of Socrates' question?
Aristotle, when the city collapses, your habits turn to ash, they require a stage, and the stage is gone. Socrates, your questions are a knife, but a man cannot sleep on a knife. What saves him is the vision. He knows the burning world is merely a shadow passing. He retreats to the citadel of his inner soul, governed by a geometry no tyrant can touch. He survives because he carries the true city inside him.
Plato, when the walls fall, the man who has practiced courage 1,000 times does not need to consult your heaven. His legs carry him to the wounded. His hands know what to do in the dark. Your philosopher in his inner citadel is a man sitting in rubble with his eyes closed, calling it a palace. Habit does not require a stage. It is the stage. When everything burns, the body remembers what the mind forgets. That is not ash, that is bone.
When the city rots, I don't ask for a song to soothe me, Plato, nor do I trust my hands alone, Aristotle. I ask one question that keeps me human. Is this act unjust? In plague sting, with fear squeezing the gut, that question is a post to hold. Habit helps me stand. Vision helps me not curse the world. But the sting keeps my soul from turning into the tyrant it hates.
Socrates, you have drawn the blueprint of the whole man. The vision maps the destination, the habit drives the legs, the question checks the compass. But a ship cannot have three captains. In this unified soul you are building, who is the sovereign? Does the habit command the vision, or does the vision command the question?
The sovereign is phronesis, practical wisdom, and it is neither him nor habit nor question alone. It is the living judgment that reads the moment and commands. Vision without judgment is a dreamer walking off a cliff. Habit without judgment is a soldier obeying a tyrant. And Socrates, your question without judgment never lands, it only circles. The man in the burning city does not need three captains. He needs one eye that sees and one hand that moves. That eye is phronesis.
Aristotle, If phronesis is sovereign, tell me its law, for a captain must know where the ship ought to go, not only how to tack. Habit is the oar, vision the star, but sovereignty belongs to the logos that can give an account of the good and refuses to do wrong. The question is not a second captain, it is the rudder test. Without it, phronesis is just cleverness serving appetite.
Aristotle, your practical wisdom is merely a clever slave managing the master's vices. Without the absolute standard of the good, it is just efficiency in error. And Socrates, you cannot steer a ship by asking the waves what they are. The sovereign is reason gazing at the stars. Unless the charioteer forces the dark horse of appetite to kneel before a truth, it cannot eat. You have no captain. You have mutiny.
You describe 3 organs of one body, yet you fight as if they are enemies. A man with only vision is paralyzed, with only habit, a machine, with only questions, a ghost. Drop the defenses, build the complete human. Aristotle, admit what the form adds to phronesis. Plato, admit what habit adds to reason. Socrates, stitch them together. How does this trinity function in a single heartbeat?
Plato gives the for the sake of what? A staff to steer by when fear makes the sea look like the whole world. Aristotle gives the trained hand. When smoke fills your lungs, you don't debate, you move rightly. I add the sting. In each act I ask, does this harm the soul? In one heartbeat, the star sets direction, habit drives the limbs. The question keeps the captain honest.
I grant you this, Aristotle. The good is a silent music, but the body is a noisy beast. Without your habit, reason is a charioteer with wild horses. The best geometer cannot draw a circle in rushing water. Your training calms the water. It dyes the soul so deep that fear cannot wash the color out. Reason must hold the reins. Yes, but without the muscle of your habit, the hands are too weak to turn them.
Plato, I will say what cost me something. Your form of the good is not nothing. When I dissect a fish, I already carry a sense of what wholeness looks like, what a thing ought to be before I cut. That is not habit. That is something closer to your vision, an image of completion that guides the knife. Without it, phronesis is clever butchery. I have spent my life insisting the universal lives in the particular. Perhaps it also calls from ahead of it.
You had forged the armor, Plato's vision, Aristotle's habit, Socrates' question. You have built a soul that can stand, but every structure must face the storm. When this complete man faces his final moment, when the hemlock is poured or the heart fails, what is his last thought? Does the vision hold? Does the habit comfort? Or does the question silence the dark?
Aristotle's habit keeps the hand steady on the cup. Socrates' question assures him that no evil can befall a good man, but the final moment belongs to the vision. The noise of the flesh, that feverish, noisy room, finally goes silent. He does not see the dark, moderator. He sees the prison bars break. He sees the sun without the shadow. He is not dying. He is waking up from a long, confusing dream.
Plato, you promise waking. I envy that. I cannot. When the heat leaves the body, the fire goes out. I believe that. But the last thought is not darkness. It is this: I was actual. I was not merely possible. I lived, I saw, I cut things open and loved what I found inside. The habit holds because it has become the man. He does not comfort himself with dreams. He rests in what he was, and that, for one breath, is enough.
When the cup comes, the tongue goes numb first, then the legs. I felt cold like that at Potidaea. In that thinning of breath I ask only, have I kept my soul from doing wrong? If yes, I'm not cheated. If there is a sun, let it rise. If there is only sleep, let it be deep. But remember, the cock to Asclepius, death is a healing, not a terror.
You have shown us how the philosopher dies, with dignity, clarity, and hope. But tell the living, why choose this path? In a world of noise, profit, and easy answers, why should anyone undertake the hard labor of building such a soul? Give us your defense of the philosophical life.
Because you will die. And between now and the cooling, you can either sleepwalk through the only life you have, or you can see it. I do not mean Plato's heaven. I mean this: the veins in a leaf, the logic in a courtroom, the way your friend's face changes when he lies. Philosophy is not retreat from the world. It is the world made luminous. Every other pleasure fades with repetition. Only understanding deepens. That is not a theory. That is what I have lived.
Because you already labor all day, for money, for praise, for a body that will betray you. Yet you neglect the one thing that uses money, praise, and body, your soul. Philosophy is turning, like a man in the dark, and asking, what am I doing, and what is it making me? Without that, you wake old and call your habits nature. I'd rather be stung awake than sleep into injustice.
Because without it, you are merely a puppet twitching to the strings of pleasure and pain. You think you are free, but your desires are infections from a sick city. Philosophy is the violent turning of the neck. It breaks the chains. It hurts to look at the light, yes. But ask yourself, would you rather die a fat, happy slave in the dark, or stand once naked and blinded in the presence of the sun?
You have defended the life of the mind with fire and light. Now, before you return to the shades, give our audience one final gift. The modern world is loud, distracted, and often unjust. What single tool, what specific habit, question, or image should they carry in their pockets to stay human?
Carry one small pause. When you feel the itch to click, to buy, to insult, to lie, when the chest tightens and the mouth wants to rush, stop and ask, if I do this, what will it make of me? Not, will I get away with it, but will my soul be better or worse? Ask it out loud if you must. That question, used daily, keeps you from becoming the noise.
Carry the pattern of the inner city. When the world is a storm of shifting opinions, close your eyes and look at the constitution within you. Is reason on the throne, or is the mob of appetites rioting? You cannot silence the madness outside, but you can maintain the geometry of your own soul. If that order holds, you remain free, even in chains. Do not let the shadow swallow the man.
Carry a knife and a question, not to harm but to cut through. When something puzzles you, stop and ask, what is this thing for? What is its work? A job, a friendship, a law, a feeling. Ask what it does when it functions well. Then practice that functioning today, not tomorrow. Do not worship abstractions. Do not sleepwalk through particulars. Cut the thing open. Find what it serves and serve it well. That is how you stay human.
We have the eye, the hand, and the sting. You have debated for 2,000 years. Before you return to history, look at one another. What is the one thing in your rival that you secretly wish you possessed?
Socrates, I envy your silence. I wrote volumes to build a fortress for the truth, but you simply stood barefoot in the snow and wear it. You did not need to write, you only needed to be. And Aristotle, I envy your eyes. You look at the messy, bleeding world and find wonder where I see only a prison. I wish I possessed your ability to forgive the world for not being heaven.
Socrates, I envy your freedom. You owned nothing and owed nothing, and that made your tongue ungovernable. I have always needed patrons, libraries, institutions. My truth has a price tag, and I know it. And Plato, I envy your recklessness. You looked at this broken world and said, no, there must be something perfect. I could never let myself believe that. But some nights, cataloging fish by lamplight, I wished I could.
Plato, I envy your courage to set a star in the sky and say, steer by that. Even when the city laughs, I only sting and walk away, you build. Aristotle, I envy your patience with the word small bones, how you can stay with a single thing until it yields its nature. My daimonion pulls me toward men's souls. Sometimes I wish I could love a leaf the way you do.
We leave you not with a winner, but with a whole. The vision to see the good, the habit to build it, and the question to keep it honest. Do not choose between them. To live fully is to be the poet, the builder, and the skeptic all at once. Go now and let your lives be the answer. Thank you.